Modern wars are creating a new class of wounded warrior. Explosives leave troops with horrific injuries that they survive. Now there are amazing new ways to heal broken bodies that sound like science fiction. Joce Sterman shows us one treatment aptly called the Matrix.
I just remember just a loud bang, and it gets like that real high-pitched squeal. It's almost like in the movies. Everything slows down.
Marine Sergeant Ronald Strang was 24 years old when he was deployed to Afghanistan with a mission to train the National Army and police. Everything changed Easter Sunday, 2010. He was on routine patrol in a village 3 hours west of Kandahar.
And it was just dead. There was no one out there. I remember turning around, looking behind me to my one buddy, and I said, I had that gut feeling. I said, it's really quiet, just watch your step.
A terrorist triggered an IED as Strang came into view.
It spun me around and I fell on the ground. And I just remember looking down and my leg was splayed open. I just see my bone and muscle and just blood. If I was maybe another 4 or 5 inches ahead, I probably would have cut me in half.
Fellow Marines quickly put a tourniquet on his leg and kept him from bleeding to death. Strang was airlifted out and eventually transported back to the U.S.
Different thoughts to go through your head of, your family back home and your friends and like, what are they gonna think? And it was hard. It was hard at first.
More troops are surviving this kind of attack. In 2016, the Surgeon General of the Army said about 92% of soldiers wounded in Iraq and Afghanistan have made it home alive. That's higher than any other war. But survival doesn't equal living. IEDs have created a new field of traumatic wounds for men and women returning from the front lines. Many face amputation or a permanent handicap. Strang didn't lose his leg, but did lose much of his mobility.
This is how I used to walk. So when it would hit, I would have to have my knee locked back to hit it, or else when it went and it wasn't, it would go like that, and I didn't have the muscle to stand back up with.
Enter the extracellular matrix.
When they were trying to explain it, it was kind of like science fiction at the time.
A tiny piece of material that would change lives.
It's sort of like the glue that holds all of our cells together.
Dr. Stephen Badylak directs research at the Regenerative Medicine Center at the University of Pittsburgh, focusing on the extracellular matrix, or ECM.
Cut across the top.
It starts with a pig's bladder. In the lab, scientists carefully slice, stretch, and strip to get rid of cells, leaving just the connective material as a blank slate.
We're going to kind of pull.
It's later placed in a patient's body to create a paper-thin scaffolding, with what Badylak discovered are medicinal superpowers.
So essentially this matrix, when it's placed in someone's body, it can send a signal to say, heal and regenerate.
Exactly. It's kind of like an information highway between cells. So the idea would be, can we use some of these signals to have us back up a little bit and say, can we now try to regrow again that tissue rather than just heal it with a scar? And the short answer is yes.
There's no need to be shy, yeah, I guess.
Strang's battle scar is a source of pride.
Yeah, it goes pretty decently far.
He can show exactly where his ECM was implanted.
I think it was like a 1/2 inch to 1 inch wide, like paper thin. So it was very little bit.
It's not perfect, but that transplanted tissue was the springboard to his recovery.
It was hard to get around before. The knee would give out and I'd fall over all the time. But afterwards, I had a little more strength. I could walk. I could step on things like uneven surfaces. Stairs aren't a problem anymore. I didn't have to use a cane or a walker walking around.
The Department of Defense funded a recent study of 13 patients. 6 months after a matrix implant, the patient showed improvements in strength and motion.
We're at a point where we can make more than just these little incremental changes. We can take jumps.
The next step is getting funding for more trials.
The Defense Department, they've stepped up to the plate and said, we're going to do whatever we can to help these guys.
Oh boy.
7 years after getting the matrix, Strang's walks with his dog Moose provide much of his physical therapy. He's now a newlywed with enough mobility to continue his life of service as a police officer at a VA center.
So this procedure gave you your life back?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, it was huge for me because I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't gotten it.
Wow, what's the investment?
It's pretty large. According to the latest government figures, 7 federal agencies have invested nearly $3 billion into this regenerative medicine research. That was between 2012 and 2014. And the DoD contributed $252 million of that, Cheryl.
Very important. Thanks, Joce.